and welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. Today we're going to have a brand new book guest on. Whether they're an author, an editor, a producer, you'll never quite know, so you're in for one hell of a ride. But today I just have to do the adverts and then I'll get us straight into that most important conversation. And as we do every week, I'm going to read The Shadow, which is part of the Time Guardian series, and this is book 4 from Marianne Curley. The battle is over, the war is won. The prophecy complete, but life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan, struggling to cope with tragic loss. At odds with friends in the guard, he finds himself adrift, jumping at shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself for the goddess Athena's death, Giselle swears revenge, to vilify the Immortals' plan for world domination. But Giselle hadn't planned on love, and that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart, or the strings of a goddess short on praise but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the guard and the order battle through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks round every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe who stands in the shadow? And just a reminder that The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rowan, is being donated to the Ukraine refugee crisis. And here's the blurb for her book. It's one of her Roman British crime series, which was written under her maiden name. All editions can be found online where all books are sold, even her agents donating her commission. Sorry, I don't have the blurb for that, but that's what she's doing. And now, without further ado, let's get you to the guests. And welcome, guys, back to the Book and Life podcast. I promised you a surprise extra special guest, and I have her. She is an amazing YA author who's coming on today to blow our minds with her incredibly gifted stories. So without further ado, please everybody welcome Mindee. Did I get that right?
You did. And how do I
Yes.
say your name? Is it Crystal?
Sorry?
How do I say your name? Is it
it's just Crystal. It's the very simple kind of
Crystal. Okay.
way of putting it. It's just spelled funny because my aunt was trying to be cute and she was trying to use a phonetic way of spelling it, thinking it would be easier. Actually, she just made it harder.
What?
So.
Well, I was like, because it could be Crystal, right? Like.
Yeah, I get that. That's the one I get in America all the time. It's like Crystal, and I'm like, Crystal. No, it's like, Crystal.
Like the drink, yeah. Really? Yeah. Okay. No, I figured it was Crystal. I just want to make sure. So.
Yeah, because there's this guy that I know in LA, and he goes Crystalla every single time, and I've corrected him I think about 50 million times, and he still goes Crystalla, and I'm like, no, not even close, dude. I sometimes refuse to answer him until he gets it right. So, but that's the joy of being an author, right? You just turn up into an event and people can't see your name. So tell us about your latest YA, because your agent got me super excited about having you on.
Okay. Yeah. So my latest is called Riven. It came out in January. It is a standalone fantasy, so there will not be any sequels to it. So if you are one of those people that wants to wait for the whole thing, you don't have to wait. It has an end, a beginning, a middle, and an end. A pretty, I like to think, a satisfying end. And it is about it's a male point of view. His name is Mars Darksbane. And he is an assassin who is trying to get out of the life, which is kind of a common theme for some of my books. And one of the reasons why he's trying to get out is that he had a job that didn't go so well. He had to, do his thing, where he killed somebody, and It really shook him. It didn't go well, and he wants to be done with it. And his boss, his mobster boss, calls him back in to do one last job. And that job happens to be to protect the daughter of the man who he just assassinated. So that's kind of where the story starts. The background of the story is kind of odd, weird. I like to use weird inspirations for my story, which really have nothing to do with what they actually end up being, but make sense to me as an author from where I got the idea. And it was inspired by two particular items. The first one being Iceland. So I can go into kind of where that Iceland thing came from. So the actual country of, which is Riven is the name of the country. Riven is built around Iceland, the way Iceland is. So I'm sure you're familiar with Iceland being the center of the country is primarily icebergs. So it's, full of really cold.
Yeah.
It's not inhabitable. So they all live around the outside of it. And so Riven is very much the same, but instead of it being the middle of the country being ice, it is contaminated by magic that's gone dark and gone very corrupted magic. So it used to be back in the history of this world that they used to live in the center of the island, and the magic people of the time, the magic holders did something very naughty, very bad, and they corrupted the magic, and it kind of had an eruption. And that caused the center of the country to go bad, and you can't live there anymore. So now it's forced everyone to the outskirts, similar to Iceland. And then I also borrowed the Icelandic naming convention, which I find really, really fun. How in Iceland they take the last name. Their last names are often they're the son or the daughter of their parents. So I'm a big fan of CrossFit. I don't know how big that is in Scotland, but
it's huge. It's everywhere.
Okay, so there's a huge Icelandic females in CrossFit. So they're Katrin David's daughter and Sarah Siegmund's daughter, and so on. So there's this idea of daughter, right? And they had released this video around the time I was starting this book about daughter and how what it was to be a daughter. And I was like, I love this convention. How they're not named. The naming isn't, your last name just doesn't follow you, right? It changes based on who you are. And so I really wanted to play with that. So in my story, instead of daughter, they become Datra if they're a female. And if they're a male, they become Vane, so Vane. And so I really played around with some of that, the language and what it would look like for a story, which is totally not interesting at all to a reader, but to a writer is super fun to do.
It is super fun. And I think it's fascinating you picked Iceland because the Shetland Islands is so near to where it is. Because if you look at the map, Shetland is like just down from the Faroes, and then we can actually go straight across to Iceland from where we are. And if we go this way, that way, right, we hit Norway.
Yeah.
That's where I was from, that's where I grew up. Great. So I grew up right in the Viking hub. So I had all the Viking mythology and magic and everything installed in me.
Right. Yeah, so it has a very Viking, a lot of the magic and the history, the rituals, even the, if you look at the book, the artwork is very Viking-ish. The interior is gorgeous. My publisher did a great job kind of really drawing on that the Viking feel to it. Although it's weird, my books tend to be they have firearms and they have trains. So it's not like I like to inhabit this not typical space where it's kind of like the Napoleonic War space where we have a little bit of firearms, but not like enough to have really changed warfare entirely. So and I like to straddle that transient time period. So
it kind of reminds me a little bit like the Crow series meets like Divergence. That's kind of how it sounds to me, like, the Crows, and then obviously Da Vinci.
Yeah, the Six of Crows with Leigh Bardugo.
Divergence. I will say that word right.
Divergent. Yeah, both Leigh and Veronica Roth are with my agency. Actually, we share. Veronica and Leigh are with, they're with a different agent, but we're in the same house. So we
Yeah.
actually all debuted around the same time. So I'm familiar. Lee and I we shared a hotel room, and so we had a little bit of some fun there. So I don't know if that's just because we're similar in age and background. I don't know, but yeah, we do kind of
She's
inhabit
maybe
that
rubbed off
space.
on you a little bit, and you've just not realized
Um,
it.
Not really, because my books were written at the same time. So we
Oh, okay.
again because she debuted maybe 10 months before I did. So my books were already
Wow.
in the we're already coming out at the same time. So we definitely we're contemporaries as opposed to anyways.
That's
But
amazing.
the
And
second
I love your other stuff. Like I saw some of your stuff with like horses and stuff like that.
mhm.
And I
Yeah,
was like,
so horses are a
wow,
big
that's a girl after my own heart. Yeah.
yeah. Horses are a big thing. There's not there's a little bit of horses in Riven. My main character Mars hates horses actually, so I had some fun there. There's a scene where he's riding and he complains about how hard it is, and the love interest, there's a little bit of a romance. It's not very steamy. I'm not really great at romance. I don't know why that is. I wish I were better at it. I'll have to ask you for some tips. um, she's really good at writing. Her name is Fura. She actually has a last name because she's a leader of a particular area, so she gets to have a real last name that carries on with her. But she can ride and do all the things, and she makes him feel like really inadequate because he can't ride. So there's not as much horses in Riven. My previous series, Onyx and Ivory, though, was inspired by the Pony Express here in the United States. So there's a lot of
Oh,
writing in
wow.
that.
Yeah.
But the second part of Riven, the second inspiration is actually a movie from the 80s, which I'm sure many of your readers or your listeners are not familiar with. It's called Can't Buy Me Love. It's
Oh, okay.
actually
Yeah.
it was a Patrick Dempsey movie. This is before he was um, really big. This is when he's like a teenager, so he's really young.
Yeah.
And he's a geeky guy, and he wants to be popular, so he pays the popular girl. Her name is Cindy Mancini in the movie. To go out with him, and he thinks that that's going to make him popular. So it's basically this pretend love affair, and that's kind of what inspired the idea of Mars having to protect Fura, is that they actually have to pretend to be lovers in the first part of the story, and how awkward that is,
Wow.
of course, for both of them, because they're like, oh, I don't like you. And then, of course, Mars is harboring this terrible secret that he actually killed her father, just
Yeah,
to,
of course.
really
Yeah.
make things spicy. So there's a lot more to it, but that's the promise of the premise, right? That's the beginning where the story launches.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of like readers that will be listening that will be really interested in this because it's something that's a little bit different than what they've been hearing, and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, gotta try this," you know. And that's the great thing about coming on here is you can share like so many different perspectives. Like you can share different recommendations and different books and things like that. So for you, what's something that you're reading at the moment that's really got you hooked?
Really interesting. Sorry, we're talking about Lee. I just finished her second book in the Hellbent, which is the sequel to Ninth House, which is really
Yeah.
good. So I'm really enjoying that. And then I picked up The Plague Stones by James Brogden. He is,
Ooh.
and I think he's Irish. I don't know, but it came across I get BookBub, right? So I'm looking for, Kindle books or whatever, and kind of expand my horizon. And I've been trying to read a little bit more adult. I've
Yeah.
been wanting to read a little bit more adult of late. I don't know why. And I'm enjoying that one a lot, actually, because it's about I love folklore. I love European folklore and Viking and anything that's, well, there's not a lot of folklore in the United States, of
Yeah.
course, because we're babies. So
You'll have to visit
I love,
Shetland so you can get a taste of the mythology that's hidden because they actually have a lot
I
of
know,
stories that's hidden. And if you come and you
I've,
see the places and you walk, we actually have original Viking towns that still exist with the
I know, I
original
love it.
archaeology is all there. And I swear, like when you're standing in Shetland, you can feel the Norse everywhere, like the gods everywhere, the magic's there. it's like the most magical place, and then winter hits, and it's like the most unbearable place to be because it's like so cold and so dark, and you've got snow that, or you've got howling winds of 100 friggin' miles an hour, and you're trying to get to school, and you're like literally holding on to the fences as you're kind of like trying to get there, kind of thing.
That sounds terrible.
In the winter, it's awful. In the
In the
summer,
winter,
it's
it's awful.
absolutely magical and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it almost lulls you into a false sense of security. And then winter hits you, and you're like, oh my
I
god,
would
it's
die.
like being in bed with a
Yeah.
demon. It's like, what the hell? Especially if
Right.
you're lying in,
No.
this is what happened at my parents' house. I was lying in bed, and all of a sudden, this gust of wind, I have no idea where it came from, came in the room through the bed, and I literally must have lapped a foot up in the air. And it turned out that
Wow.
because everything in Shetland rots because of the salt from the sea, and the wood for the window was actually starting to come away. So that night when I was sound asleep and the wind picked up, the wind actually came right through the window, and I nearly had a heart attack.
Oh,
I
that's
I
awesome.
thought some
So
really random ghost was climbing into bed with me or something.
much
I was totally
inspiration,
ready
man,
to
right?
run, yeah. Uh,
Oh, that's
and it's like,
awesome.
because all of the
No.
houses have like these big wood burning stoves in them. That's
Mm-hmm.
what heats the houses. And if the wind gets in it, it's like a whistle. And no matter where you are in
Yeah.
that house, you can hear this god awful whistling noise. So yeah,
That's great. No,
they actually
I would love
started.
it.
They've put skylights in the Shetland houses because we all have vitamin D deficiencies. Because none of us are ever outside because the weather's so bad. And there's nothing worse than going for a bath and looking up and seeing a raven sitting on your window staring at you. And they just sit there and they stare at you and they don't go away. They just sit there. Like a peeping Tom, but it's a bird. And you're like,
Yeah.
go away. Yeah. So yeah, my dad reckons that I caused them to have a peeping Tom raven.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it. I would love to visit. I love the sense of old things and just history. And I
Yeah.
try, it's why one of the reasons I write fantasies. I want you to feel like you're stepping into something that's been there forever and that could go on
Exactly,
forever.
yeah.
And I do think that I would like to hope that when readers step into my worlds, they do feel like they're getting the full. I'm like, my motivation in writing, it's particularly young adult, is more the world and the sense of place, which is why I'm probably not as good on the romance, because that's the hook for me, is the place, the
Yeah.
sense of the story and the history. Like I recently discovered during COVID, actually, Lloyd Alexander. I had never read
Oh
the
wow.
Chronicles of Prydain
Yeah.
until then. I just didn't, because he came out in the 60s and I, just wasn't popular when I was a kid. And I loved it. Loved the sense that this was like found history. And I try to bring those to my stories. And I feel like, but also for the history that's like, again, that kind of straddles that not ancient history, but like that in between history. And even the most recent book I'm working on now also is straddling. It's kind of a Western. It's more definitely. It's actually Australian Western. So
That would be fun.
I love movie. Yeah, I love movie inspiration. So I'm drawing off of the Man for Snowy River. So it has a very Man for Snowy River feel to it.
See, for me, like I've written romance for so long. Like you kind of almost fall into this chasm, I would say, with romance, because you've got all these different pathways you can choose, but you kind of know where it's going. And I kind of decided, like, I think it was when I started working with Joe, I went, I don't want to do cookie cutter romance. So we grew this, and this was the 64 book series I was telling you about, was we grew a web from all the different characters that were like in the main part of the story, and we've given them their own books, so they have their own voices. So as you kind of learn about the main characters, you get the opportunity to follow that main character. So if you're like, oh, I'm a fan of Cameron, I'll follow. You can go and follow Cameron's journey through the story from his point of view, and it's the same with like we have it for Harold and Layla and Marie, and we just built this kind of little group that the books all kind of revolve around. So it was something very different, and I also focused on conflict because I'm a bit like you. I want the place and the people to be the hook, not the romance of it, not the
Right.
possibility of all that. So I looked into, well, what would make these characters do the things that they're doing? What would make them say the things they say? Like, and I didn't want them to be perfect, good guy, bad guy, so I gave them flaws. So I totally get it from where you're sort of saying like romance isn't easy for you, and
Mm.
being in that position myself, like I have Summer of Him out, which is an adult romance that is about an author who falls in love with a wrestler just because they're working together and it just fits. They just end up fitting together. um and of course everyone that's an author knows what romance conventions are like. We all know the mayhem and the madness
Right.
that takes place at those things. It really is like a party 3-day weekend that you're also trying to work and you're also trying to survive. And I just thought that was kind of a very fun setting for just a romance to happen. Like you could almost see that situation arising. And I take a lot of my inspiration from life. I don't know if you do that too. Like if you're
Hmm.
thinking back on your younger times when you were a bit more crazy and you did a lot more things, then sometimes like you're like, oh, that's a really good memory, that would make a really good story, and I kind of pull on that. So there's a lot of my friends that get nervous when I say I have a new book coming out because they're like I wonder where she got inspiration for this one, like. And being that I have a lot of friends who are famous wrestlers, I do get secret messages going, so where did the inspiration from this come from? Like, is this me? And a lot of them will just come out and ask me, is it me? And I have to like
Yeah.
deny or agree or whatever.
You don't get a
Um,
libel suit.
yeah, like I have to be kind of like so careful. Like if somebody was the inspiration for the book, I do put them in the acknowledgments. I'll be like, totally, this book is inspired because of so and so. Um,
Right.
but I'm very careful now. Like, but they're really awesome. I mean, my friends in wrestling, they let me away with so much. I honestly couldn't be more grateful. Like, just working with the script doctor I'm working with now. Like, I can't say his name, but he's fantastic. Like, he's a genius, and he's so detail orientated. Like that's what I think makes him a fantastic fantasy writer because it's so little details. Like, and that's why I love fantasy writers because they focus on the details, just the little things that make it an amazing journey. And I actually tend to read more fantasy than I do any other genre because that's just like I grew up on fantasy and I grew up on historical, so I love it when it kind of like crosses over and you get a little bit of both. So, which is why I was excited about you coming on because your agent was talking to me and I was like, oh wow, this sounds like a book I'll love. Like I'm going to go out and buy this book when it comes out. Like that was kind of my reaction to it, and I was like, yeah, I can't wait to have you on. And also, you're a fellow horse rider, so that was like swing vote because I spent all my younger years riding. So I know the pain of falling off quite well. Oh, so yeah, the answer to your question is I did dressage, which was actually my strongest area, but I also did show jumping and I worked with Icelandics. And if you know anything about Icelandic ponies, they're
Hmm.
very bouncy. Very, very, very bouncy. So my horse was actually known as Fiedler, which is an Icelandic name, and he didn't like going around cones. So it made dressage really interesting because he'd like to jump the cones.
Oh no.
Yeah, so like we would be doing this perfect little routine and then he'd blow it because he would get bored and he'd forget I was on his back and he would just jump a cone, and I would be like, ooh, like trying to hold on, like, ooh. The worst time he did it to me was I was in side saddle. So like, it was like, how the hell do you jump in side saddle? You know, because you're like
Right.
literally on one side of his stomach, and I'm literally like clenching with my butt cheeks as hard as I can to not come off. I'm like, so
Oh, that
yeah,
doesn't
and I
sound
had to
fun.
learn how to shoot a bow and arrow inside saddle.
Oh, that's fun. I've done some mounted shooting. I've
I
taken a
saw
couple of
that, yeah,
classes to do it. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, I event, so I do 3-day eventing. So I do. I don't. We say it dressage, not dressage. I
yeah.
wish we said it that way. It sounds so much better.
It does. It
And
sounds so
then
much posher, doesn't it? Dressage.
it does. Dressage. My trainer, she'll be making a funny, and she'll go, dressage. We're going to do dressage today. And we
Yes.
do stadium jumping, and then of course the favorite cross
Yeah.
country. So I have two off the track thoroughbreds that I can campaign. My baby,
I
my
hate
newest
off
one,
country. Yeah, off country. I do it. I get lost every time.
oh no, I
Even
don't.
though there's
That's
tape, I get
yeah.
lost somehow. Like I literally need somebody at every so many pointers to go.
Right.
You know, with like the hands and the signals and you know, because I just get lost and I've never like
Hmm.
I've competed twice and I've won twice, but I'm pretty sure I got lost. Otherwise, my speed would have been faster. Like I'm pretty sure I took a
Right.
wrong turn at some point because like
That's
the horse
funny.
knew where it was going. Crystal didn't.
That's
He must
great.
have known that course so well. Like, and of course, if you ever get to see this on YouTube, you should look up Shetland pony races. If you
I've
want to
seen
see
them.
they're wild.
They are. They're
That's what
so funny.
I started that. I started on that.
I
I was
can't that.
4.5, yeah, 4.5 years old, and my mom just stuck me on a Shetland pony. She spanked it across the arse, and it took off. And I'm like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die.
Ponies are
No. And
they're so naughty.
they are, and they
Ponies.
bite.
Ponies are
They
naughty.
love to bite you. Oh my gosh. Because
I
my mom
know.
went for a pee one night. We were all kind of roughing it. On I can't remember. It was some famous race course because we had dressage and show jumping the next day. So we were all sleeping in the trucks. My mom said, "Right, I'm going for a pee." Next thing I hear is this blood curdling scream from outside the truck, and she'd gone into the horse box thinking it was empty to use the bathroom, and the horse had bit her rear end.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know what
hilarious.
he thought this big white thing was, but he was just like, "Well, I'll take a bite of that." So
Oh.
we pull the door for the truck open, and here's my mom in trying to pull her jeans up, running around trying to catch my horse because it was my horse that got out,
I lost
and
you.
he's pure white. So if you know anything about showing horses, if they're pure white, they are a nightmare to keep clean. And
Hmm.
we literally used to bandage his stomach because his stomach could not touch the ground. So he was like covered in band. He looked like this weird mummy horse that was like taking off through the field. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like 2:30 in the morning." And I'm like, I don't want to chase a horse at 2:30 in the morning. I'm like 6 or 7 at the time. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So yeah, that's how I spent my summers was in the backs of cars and trailers going up and down the UK doing horse riding events.
That's funny.
Oh,
Yeah,
crazy.
I still do that. So, yeah.
It's the most amazing feeling though. Like
Hmm.
riding is it's such I always say it's like the best thing you'll ever feel because it's a connection between you and the animal, and
Yeah.
you cannot find anything like it. It's
No,
just
it's a true addiction. Yeah, it's
yeah.
addicting. So I'd be a lot richer if I didn't have horses. So I'd be a lot
Yeah,
less
I know
poor.
that
Let's
feeling.
put it that way.
Yeah.
Especially in the
I'm
United States. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
laugh because the I have been injured over the years. We all get injured riding, but I had my very first concussion on horseback.
Yeah, same.
So my uncle was driving by on his motorcycle and he backfired, and my horse took off at full speed. Because he got scared, he took off at full speed, and I'm trying to pull him up, and he rips the reins straight out of my hands, and he actually rips the muscles in one of my fingers, and dumps me right into a goalpost for like
Oh
one of those
no.
football, it's like soccer footpost things. It was solid
Mm-hmm.
steel. I went head first in. My helmet broke, and I'm
Oh,
lying on the floor completely out of it for like 10 minutes. And that was my first concussion.
well, at least you're wearing
So
a
yeah,
helmet. Thank goodness.
yeah, yeah. I would have been dead if I hadn't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, being around Shetlands was dangerous. Like, we always had to have chest protectors on and helmets
Mm-hmm.
on. And my friend Chris thought he was like a smart ass. He's like, "Oh, I don't need a chest protector. I don't need a chest protector." And he went up behind a Shetland pony, and he was not paying attention, and the pony pulled his leg back and kicked him straight in the ribs, and he ended up with four
Oh,
broken ribs. And I'm like, "That's why you wear the chest protectors."
yeah.
Like,
No,
I don't
Shetland
care if
ponies,
it
man.
itches. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
dangerous.
they're the
They're
little
cute,
demons.
but
They're
they're demons.
demonic.
Yeah,
Yes, they are.
demonic. Exactly. Yeah. Like,
Nope,
I when I
I
moved
have
up,
rules. No
I moved out to
ponies, no mules.
Icelandic. Best decision.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one
no
because they
ponies, no
bite.
mules.
Like,
Yeah, and they're stubborn and they're low center of gravity. You can't. No, they're a pain. I have two
I
thoroughbreds. I have two Arabs that are
wow.
they're older. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's
you should try an
no ponies.
Icelandic because the gait of an Icelandic is so smooth.
Hmm.
It's like you're just skimming water. It's
Right.
the most amazing. I mean, I've ridden everything from thoroughbreds to some of the biggest Clydesdales. I've ridden every kind of horse possible. But when I got on an Icelandic, just the glide of that gait was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And if you're ever looking for ones, I've got a breeder over here that breeds for the States. She's amazing. She breaks them and everything, so they're completely used to road traffic. They're completely trained to do dressage. They will come when called. They're a little bit like dogs. They come and they do want to play though. Don't get me wrong. They will want to play like fetch and stuff, but they are super like friendly and stuff. Cause like when my husband met my horse before I moved away, he was playing fetch with my horse out the back of the stable yard while I was paying my fees. I come out and he's like throwing the stick. And my horse is running
It's
and grabbing
adorable.
it and bringing it back to him and dropping it. And then he was like sitting there waiting for him. Like just like a big dog. And Ian was just in heaven. Like he did the same thing. We went to the riding disability center where I was training. I actually got invited to be part of the international dressage classes there. And so he was playing with my horse before I got on him. The only problem was then my horse wanted to play and not do class.
And
So
not do work.
I
Yep.
ended up fighting. Yeah, I had to fight him the entire hour because he just kept wanting to go back to Ian because he knew Ian had polos. And if you know anything about horses and polos, yeah, not a good mix. They are addicted to them. So he was like, the horse was trying to get up onto the platform to get these polos that he knew was in Ian's pocket. And I'm like,
Hmm.
seriously? So yeah. But yeah, I've had to do everything from breaking to horse care because we learn it all in the UK. Like to get your certificates, you have to go through all aspects. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I hated doing. Do you know the round the world exercise
Mm-mm.
where they test to see what your arm and your core strength's like?
Mm-mm.
Well, you basically
No.
take your feet out. You take your feet out the stirrups,
Okay.
and then you have to go around a complete hundred. You have to go all the way
Oh,
around,
okay. Yeah. Hmm.
and then you also have to dangle over each side and pull yourself
Okay.
back up, and you cannot touch the ground at all. I
Right.
hate that test. I hate it with a passion because I'm
Yeah.
tiny anyway. And then the horse is like, he's never sure that I'm there. Point one, because I weigh so little. So sometimes the horse looks up as if to say, wait, is she still there? Did I lose her? So yeah, because my when I first did my first jumping lesson, I came off and I was sitting in the dirt, and he just kept going round over the jump, thinking I was still on it, still on him, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I'm like sitting right here. You're looking at me as you're passing by."
That's funny.
I was like, "Oh well." He got his exercise that day, if nothing else. But yeah, I love it. I love it, and especially when you get if you. I think the great thing about the show is you get to meet like learn more about authors that you wouldn't necessarily know. Like CrossFit, I knew nothing about CrossFit till I met up with my wrestling friends. I'm an
Mm-hmm.
ex-dancer, so my cardio is completely different to theirs. And we went to CrossFit, and I swear to God, they nearly killed me. I
Oh,
was
I
like,
know. I
holy
know.
crap. I was like, this is
Right.
nothing like how I train. This is nothing.
Mm-mm.
And they're like,
No,
so
it's
you're
very
going to come
different.
back? And I'm like, wait, I have to come back again? Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. I was, there was some of it I was better at than they were. And then there was other parts I'm just like, how the,
Right.
are you,
Well,
how?
that's what, yeah.
Kind of,
That's what I like
yeah.
about it, though, is
Like the
because it
balance,
does a little bit of everything. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's why I'm an
And
inventor,
the
because I
balance,
don't want to, I want to do all of it. Yeah.
yeah. Like the one thing that I thought was hilarious was I had better balance than them, and I am the
Mm-hmm.
clumsiest person you'll ever meet. So they're like throwing the ball back and forth, and I'm on one leg, and I'm just like, okay, this is easy. And they're all kind of like swaying as if they're on like a boat at sea, and I'm like, how is this hard for you? Like, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm a dancer, so this is like
Well, you also
natural for
ride.
me.
Yeah. You ride, though. You
Yeah,
have to have
so
balance
like
to
this is
ride.
natural for me. Yeah.
Right.
So they
Yeah.
yeah, but then they kicked my ass in every other aspect.
Yeah. Like throwing around all the weights. Yep.
Yeah, and then here I am with like the baby weights. Yeah, they love making fun of me because I have like the skinniest chicken arms going. And then the fact that I've worked with horses and stuff, they're like, how do you not have more muscles? I don't know. Like, um, I carry my own saddle, I throw my own stuff on. It's not like I don't, you know?
Right.
And the saddles are not, they all think they are like, they weigh nothing.
Mm-mm.
But saddles are intensely heavy, I think, depending on the kind of saddle you've got. But British standard saddles are
Right.
nowhere near as heavy as your Western saddle. The
Yeah.
first
I
time
mean,
I took a
I write
Western saddle
English, but
down, I
yeah.
was like,
Oh, I know.
yeah. I thought my
Yeah, they're
arms
so
were
heavy.
literally going to come off. I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
My
first, and
saddle's
then
way
of course
more
every,
because of my stirrups, but yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I have
It's the
titanium
stirrups that make
stirrups, so
it.
they're heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
otherwise
was
they're
the
pretty
same.
light.
I had to
But
have titanium as well. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I can only ride British. Like when I'm here in the UK, I ride British, but if I'm in the States, I will ride Western because their horses are more used to Western compared to sort of the British saddles, I think. So
Well,
I've had a
depending on
couple
where
of
you
weird
ride.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah. Because I don't
I
ride
was in
Western. I ride it
Cali.
all English. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just depends. It depends on the farm. So there are some farms that are very Western. And then there's some that we're very disciplined. Um, we're kind of religious in our disciplines. So I don't do any
yeah,
Western riding unless I absolutely have to. Because I number one, I don't like the Western saddle. It's too restrictive, and I can't get stirrups that fit because I'm short and
yeah.
the stirrups don't adjust. And then
I'm the same boat as
Western
you. I have
riders, yeah,
tiny legs, tiny
yeah.
legs. Like I'm
And
5 foot
I
one.
just you can't jump in a Western saddle, right? Because there's a
Nope.
horn, saddle horn. It's not a good idea. So I
Yeah,
ride
I
on,
tried it. I
ride
tried it.
English.
It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
just
getting around it. It hurts. It
yeah.
yeah.
You can't. The two
Ow.
pointing, nah, it's not really a thing. Not in a Western saddle. So
No, no. I don't know how the guys can do it. See the bronc riders that have the Western saddles and they're getting like thrown forward and stuff. I'm like, dude, you gotta
mm,
wear a cup or something because I know how
yeah,
sore that is, and because I've done it. Like,
right.
yeah. But what they've done for the disabled saddles now over here is a lot of them have like small handles at the front to help you up.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of times I've hit that full on because I forgot it's there and I start trotting and I go straight into it. Oh, does that hurt? Because it's
Yeah, I'm
solid.
sure.
It's like it's steel, and I'm like, ow, I need a minute. I need a minute. Just start taking off around the corner. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah. So I love it. I just love anything horse related. That's me. I'm just total mad head for animals. But that's the thing. Growing up in Shetland, you ride all the time. So
Yeah. Well, and
very
that's
very few
it's
of us don't.
definitely yeah, and it's it's a luxury in Europe. Even your laws are so much kinder for animals
Yeah.
in the United States. It's not horse friendly at all. So it's very
No.
difficult. To have horses are expensive, and so it's it's a there's a reason why
You
all
also don't.
my stories why I like European history, and not that I want to defect to
Yeah.
Europe, but I like where I live. I love the United States, and my state is quite nice. I have 7 acres. So there's more room, so my horses are
Yes. You
they
guys
live
have
quite
much
well.
more room. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so which is nice for horses, especially. But yeah, the view. But so even I one of my employees that one of my previous employees that worked for me was from the UK, and he would talk
Yeah.
about how even on television they would just play horse sports on television, and he'd see it all the time. He'd come down and watch me show sometimes, and it's just odd because
Yeah.
that does not happen in the United States. Like you don't just flip through the television and all of a sudden there's horse stuff. Like, but apparently
Yeah,
that was a
it's
thing in
huge
the
here.
UK. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
huge here. And it's weird because it's never gone away. And I think because the royal
yeah,
family supports all the horsing events,
no,
it, it's continued on. Like I don't know if Prince Charles is going to keep it going or King Charles, sorry. But the queen was really behind it. She had her own stables, she had her own breeders,
right,
she liked to try and keep up with everybody. Like she liked to
right.
be the best racer in the world and have the best dressage horses, and her daughter was she competed all the
Yeah,
time.
she was
And
just here in the United States actually. I
yeah,
forget which one it was.
she
She's an
still
eventer.
adores it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
so
absolutely adores it. And I mean,
but I
I
also
think it's
think it's just because
incredible
it's
because
it's part of the culture, it's part of the history too, which
yeah.
I think is part
And
of it.
it's weird because it's such a part of the culture in England, but if you're up in Scotland, it's not really. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're lucky in Shetland because we have horses absolutely everywhere because we never really got over the use of, oh, well, you couldn't really ride your bikes everywhere, so kids would ride horses. Like in the countryside, if you were out in the country, you rode animals because it was cheaper than buying bikes. You can grow into a horse and you don't have to replace it every year just because somebody had a growth spurt. So a lot of
Right.
the farmers would rent out their ponies to the kids, and they would use the ponies to go to each other's houses.
That's
And that was what
great.
it was like for growing up for me. Like I don't know how many horses I jumped bareback onto and just rode down the street to go to my friend's house. Like that was just a thing. I mean, they still have the old horse riding rings outside the primary school, some of the primary schools, for actually latching your horse up during the day, which I think is awesome because the kids play with them outside and they practice their roping and doing up safety ropes and halters and stuff like that. Like we did all that at school with them. It was amazing. Like, because I've just been back during the pandemic, I went back to teach because they like called back teachers and stuff for during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back as a learning support teacher, and I was just sort of doing that with them. And yeah, it was absolutely incredible because I worked with children with disabilities. That was my specialty. So I always got the kids with ADHD because I have lots of energy usually, and I got kids that were just slightly quirky, like they weren't sure if they were dyslexic or not, so they would stick them with me, and then I would report in, yeah, they're dyslexic or no, they're not. Um, and the great thing in Shetland is the Nordic still exists, so the very old Norse still exists and it's still spoken. You can actually see it on YouTube. There's girl that I know, Mario Lynn, does it for the BBC, and she actually like does what it's like to party in Shetland. How you go to a house party and you wake up 3 weeks later and you're like, wait, where did 3 weeks go? Because you've been there the entire time. Like it just vanishes. Time vanishes in Shetland. It's awful. Um, so yeah, she like does things like that, like really quirky videos. Like, what do you not say when you're dating in Shetland? Wait, I think you're related to my cousin. Like for instance,
Oh no.
or let me check my family tree, and you take out like the laminated family tree.
I
That
don't
was the
know much
running
about
joke
it
when I
on.
turned. Yeah, like I was 16 and my grandfather gave me a small laminated family tree just so that
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't date or kiss any boys I was related to.
That's great. I'll have to
He
do
was
some more
evil though.
researching on the islands. I mean,
Oh,
if
you'll
obviously I
fall in
know it.
love
I
with it.
just haven't done, yeah, I haven't done a lot of um, honing in on
It
it.
is
Like I said,
stunning.
Iceland, yeah, I have to have something
Yeah.
has to just grab me, and Iceland grabbed me again because of the well, to start with that video because I follow
Yeah.
CrossFit, and you have to look up that daughter, and that daughter video is all of Iceland. It's not just CrossFit, but obviously the CrossFitters are in it. But then that's what got me into wanting to look at the island itself, and then wanting to build a fantasy world out of this thing of what
Yeah.
would cause the island to be uninhabitable. That was a lot of fun. I like to do what if. That's how I write. It's just like what if this, and then kind of just thought experiments,
You
going, well,
can write
maybe this
yourself into
happened.
like a spiral with that though. Like I have
Yeah,
learned that lesson the hard way. Like I feel so lucky to have a co-author because particularly when we were doing Marie's World, I would write myself into holes all the time. All the time. And he would come back to
yeah,
me and be like, this is how you get out of it. Like, I see where you've gone. This is like,
hmm,
let's take a turn here and then we'll get back on track. Or he is really good at saying, all right, you're going over the cliff, so I'm going to take the wheel now and we're going to take a right turn and you're not going to go off the cliff today. Um,
yeah.
so yeah,
I
I
think for
couldn't
me,
have done it without him.
I think for me, it's more about just finding. It's about the idea generation. Like things that
Yeah.
interest me, and to find the stories that I want to tell. Right. So it's like um, just where my story ideas come from are kind of the well, what if we took this and it became that, and I'm always looking for those kinds of possibilities. It's partly why I like the kind of stories I do. So like one of
Yeah.
my current obsessions is the TV show From. Have you heard of this show?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of it, but I've
It's
not gotten to see it yet.
oh my gosh, did you ever watch the TV show Lost when it came out? This is
Yes, I did.
okay. So I
I
loved
remembered
Lost. At least,
because it's Ian Solemhander was the draw for me on Lost
yeah. So
because he
I
then
love the
went on to do
first.
Vampire Diaries. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I loved the first couple of seasons. It ended badly because they didn't know what they were
Hmm.
doing, um, and which is always disappointing because for me as an author, I think that your ending is the most important thing, and I think that
Yes.
every
Yes.
story needs to end. And if a story doesn't end, then it's not a story. So, like, you know, series that go on forever, like TV series in particular, like, as sad as it is, I like it when they do end because I feel like that we need a sense of closure. And Lost
Yes.
really failed to do that. And it's because the creators didn't know what they were doing. They were just throwing stuff at the wall. And if you listen to J.J. Abrams and how he creates in his little mystery box, like he was just playing the game of what's interesting without any sense of where he was going. Well, From
Yeah.
is a lot like Lost, but 10 times better. And I feel like the story creators have a plan. Like they know where they're going. They have a sense of the actual mythology built in already. It's so,
Yes.
so good. It's partly why I'm reading more adult horror in particular. That's why I picked up the Plague Stones because I'm just wanting to scratch that itch for
Yeah, of
supernatural
course.
sci-fi
Have
fiction.
you
But
tried
that
the Book Eaters by Sunny Dean yet?
the Book Eaters, I've seen it. I have not
Yeah.
tried it.
Oh, I'm
Is
not a
it
big
good?
fantasy horror. It was incredible. It was incredible. I just loved the concept she took and she created with it, and she ran
Okay.
with this like whole other. There is a very strong feminist vibe to it, but
Hmm.
the idea and the concept of class, there's class in there. She addresses different equality issues like in education and jobs and how their world is failing and why the world's failing. But as a standalone, it is incredible, and it's such a fast read too. Like I think it's
Okay.
194 pages, and it just goes like
Oh
that.
wow.
It's so
Okay.
fast, and I was like at the end of it before I really knew that I was at the end, and I'm like, oh, this yeah, top 5 out of 5 for me for sure. Yeah.
I'll have to check it
I
out.
couldn't
Yeah.
recommend her enough. Yeah, I couldn't recommend her enough. And you really feel like you're in the English countryside too throughout the whole thing. Or at least I felt like
Yeah.
I was in the English countryside throughout the whole thing.
Well, you would know better, right? I've never been there, so I would I'm just
No, but
looking
you
in my
definitely you
imagination.
get like the because she takes it to Glasgow, she takes it into Scotland, and you just get it. You instantly get that connection because you can almost see the places instantly, and her
Hmm.
visuals that she creates is
And
incredible, incredible. Yeah,
that's by Suni Dean. Is that the one you're talking about?
yeah, Sunny D. Yeah,
Or
yeah,
Sunny Dean. Okay. Yeah, I've seen. I love
yeah.
the
She's an
artwork on it.
incredible
I
writer.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll definitely check that one out. I do love. I enjoy horror
See, I
a
didn't know it was
lot.
horror when it was sent to me. I thought it was just fantasy, and
Yeah,
I'm reading it
all
and I'm
my
like, ooh, this is darker than I thought. And the more I read it, the more I
yeah.
realized, oh wait, I'm reading a horror here. Like they totally kind of blindsided me with it. I was not. It was not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah, I have a little bit. All my stuff has a little bit of dark in it too, so just be warned if you when you dive into my stuff.
Oh, I will be diving in.
It's not
Yeah, for
true.
sure.
It's not true horror. But it definitely I have a love of Stephen King and a love of From has
Yeah,
definitely got a lot of horror in it. I like things
yeah.
that scare. I like suspense. I think more really
I like the
if
suspense too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I write suspense. My stories have a lot of suspense in them. I don't know. I'm full of anxiety. I think I think that I have a lot of
It's a good
anxiety that
place
I
to
have
put
to
it, though. If you put
channel.
it in your books, it's a great
Yeah,
place to put it. Like
yeah.
when, because my YA, my first ever YA is coming out on September the 30th, and it's scary for me because this is my official stepping my foot outside of romance. And I kind
Hmm.
of went for Selkies and Celtic and Welsh mythology that ends up in America in this small little town called Redding, California. And this girl has no clue that she's part of this magical kind of group that's ended up in Reading,
Hmm.
and she gets completely sucked into it. And she's like, her whole life has been destroyed. She lost her parents. She kind of has a memory of what happened, but she's not sure. She's now living with her grandmother who's keeping secrets, and she's then trying to keep secrets from her grandmother. And there's just like, it's like conflict upon conflict upon conflict. And now she's got this new boyfriend, and he's not quite what he seems. And now there's this weird brother here, and her best friend's
Right.
acting weird, and it just kind of all builds around her to the point of this like I build it and build it to the end, and then it's like boof. I just like light a match and watch like everyone go ah. But what I did was that made it different is I actually used diary entries. So
Oh,
you
okay.
get to like have a little feeling of the other characters that's in there because you get to hear their
Hmm.
diary entries. I just wanted to do something a bit different because you don't really see that in fantasy. So I'm like, I could take diary entries and put that in fantasy and see how that works kind of idea. So it's my first kind of like, I wonder if this is going to be a good or a bad one. So yeah, but
Right.
I called it the Orchid Guild because a lot of the times when Celtic and Welsh mythology would cross over, it was always through the flower, the orchid. And I just thought that seemed perfect. And then I I don't know how I found Redding, California, but it just like popped in my head one day, like because I'd been in LA, and I think a friend of mine had said she'd been in Reading, and she sent me pictures of Reading, and I thought, wow, this is a really, really gorgeous town, and that was it. Like it just seemed to match up perfectly. So Yeah, mine's is a little crazy. Selkies, they're technically vampires.
Okay. Yeah,
Bit different. Bit different.
that works. It
You
works.
gotta try different. Like it's
I
fantasy.
I have vampiric dragons in onyx and ivory, so it's okay. They're
Yeah, I mean,
basically vampire
it's not like
dragons.
it's not. We don't do it with everybody, like.
Right,
But I
right,
just thought it was like it was interesting because not when you talk to people about mythology, they don't generally know about Selkies because like
right.
Selkies are like so I guess like that was my dipping my toe in to see like I wonder if this would work, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, my first one comes out September 30th, and I am super nervous, super nervous. Give me
Exciting.
romance any day of the week. But stepping outside of that world is terrifying for me.
Yeah, see, and I would be terrified to write romance. I would. Even though I love it. I love to read romance actually. Um,
Yeah,
I haven't read
I'll have to
many.
get
I haven't.
I'll have to get you hooked up with Marie's world because I think you'd love just like the because it's contemporary fiction. It's not romance, but it's contemporary
Mm,
fiction that's set upon a family drama that just goes completely haywire when it shouldn't have gone
yeah.
haywire. Like one thing could have resolved it, defused the whole thing before it got to where it got. And I love
Yeah.
the fact
My,
it's like twins turning on each other. So you got
mm-hmm.
Layla releases her twin Marie's diaries to the world. So every private thought Marie's had is now public domain, public kind of consumption. And she's famous. She's a famous dancer, and of course that comes with consequences um,
Wow.
for Marie. And then Marie's got to decide, well, can I go back and protect my twin, or do I want to go back and kill my twin?
It's
To be honest, I
a
don't blame her for
dilemma.
the whole. Yeah,
You're
like
right. Right.
I don't blame her for that. Like I was like, I'm kind of with you on that one, Marie. Like I would want to kill her, you know. But yeah, like I think there's so many new genres coming out as well now in writing. It's a really lovely time to be an author because our world is
Right.
expanding like every day. So
It
tell us a
is.
little
It's
bit about how
just
you balance writing in your world. Like how do you go about doing everything you want to do, but also having time to put the books together?
yeah. So, to be honest, it's a lot of sacrifice, right? So there's a lot that I don't
Yeah,
do that I want to do in order to do the writing. A lot of it is focus time. So trying to, I rely on, and this is a very, probably more of an actionable response than maybe an esoteric. So I'm not sure what what people are looking for, but I actually use the Pomodoro technique to get my writing done. So, and this is
oh
the most
wow.
effective way for me. I Since you and I are actually on a video, I will show you, but I don't know. I'm sure your podcasters don't,
I'll
or
describe
people
it to
listening
them,
won't
don't
see it.
worry.
But I used a. Here's an example. You can see. So I
Oh
use this.
wow,
So what I'll
that's
do
incredible.
is it's a little fuzzy. So
It is
each
a little
block,
bit, but I can make it out. Yeah.
yeah, each little block that you see there, little circle, is 25 minutes worth of work. And what I'll do is those are
Wow.
called sprints. Those are writing sprints, or
Yeah.
work sprints. So I'll work for 25
Yeah.
minutes. I'll set a timer. I have a timer on my phone, and the goal is to try and do 25 minutes uninterrupted, and then take a
Yes.
5 minute break. It's really, really
Yes.
hard, especially because I've got kids, I've got, getting a block of time
Dogs.
to do it is hard. Dogs, horses.
Yep.
My horses are outside my window, so I can hear them when they're being naughty. So, or the phone ringing, there's all kinds of distractions. But the idea is to try and get
Yeah.
4 of those in a day, like immediately, like in a stretch. And that really
Yeah.
helps me get the writing done. And that's how I got through I just finished the first draft of my next book. I'm working on the revision of it right now. That's
Wow.
really how I got
Yeah.
through it. Is relying on that pretty heavily helps. It's just that dedicated focus time. And it's where I try and push everything else that's vying for my attention aside. And I
Yeah.
found that usually 4 to 5 25-minute sprints is about my peak. If I go much longer,
Yeah.
my tank starts to run empty. So that if I'm drafting, now when I'm revising and editing, it's a little bit different, but the actual like beginning first discovery draft, that's usually how I'm writing my stories.
Yeah, I'm
That's a
kind of
very,
similar. Like
that's a
I
very
have a set time of
pragmatic
amount of
response
time
to
that
your
I'll
question,
write,
probably.
and I'll say to Ian, right, from this time to this time, don't talk to me. You're in charge of answering the door. You're in charge of the cats. You're in charge of everything because I need to do this time writing.
Right.
And he looks at me as if to say, "Are you crazy? Like you're gonna take?" And I will do a 4 hour block, but I'll go and I'll take like pee breaks and coffee breaks. So I'll like do an hour, get up, go, make coffee, pee, come back, write again.
Right.
Um, and that's only once I plotted it all out and once I have all my
Mm-hmm.
notes written down. Once my notes are all written down, it's a case of just turning the notes to make sure that I'm still on track. Or if I get stuck, I know where I'm at.
Right.
But there's been some books where like I get to a point where I'm like, I need Joe, and then I have to like book in a time with him to be able to do his part and be like, okay, I've got a fight scene here that makes no sense. Can you help me fix it? And then he'll sit with
Right.
me for like an hour and we'll just fix it. Um, but for me, it's like I have to try and work it around all the other stuff. Like whether it's
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on the podcast or whether I have university work or whether I'm writing a script or whether I've got meetings, like I have to try and fit the writing in around everything that we're doing. And it's so that's why I like sharing that because so many authors they start out and they get overwhelmed because they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand like we're always spinning plates. Like we have our real life plate and then we have like promotions and we have edits and we have writing and we have travel and we have viewings and or sorry like appearances and stuff, so it's all these plates have to keep going and you can't drop any, and
Yeah.
sometimes that sucks, because you've got to be really good at just sort of prioritizing and managing. And I
Right. And
feel I
then
feel incredibly amazed that you do it with kids, horses, and dogs and partner. Like that just blows my mind.
and I also have a day job. So I'm really
Yeah.
unique in that I'm very, it's very, it's kind of, it's a catch-22. So, I work a 9 to 5. I work for, actually,
Yeah.
I'm a civilian for the Air Force here in the United States. So I not only do
Oh
I work a day
wow.
job, but I work a pretty
Yeah.
intense, um, I'm a professional. I'm a program manager. I do some pretty demanding stuff on top of this. So, and it is a struggle. And on the one hand,
Yeah.
and part of the reason, part of the reason why I do that is because I have horses, right? I got to pay to support the habit.
Of
So
course.
it
Yeah.
is about the money. I work because I need the money to live comfortably here in the United States, and and to be able to.
Yeah.
I don't money from writing is not. It's not stable, and I'm pretty risk adverse. I want to know that I can pay my mortgage. I want to be able to, healthcare, all those things. Those are all, that's a priority to be
Yeah.
able to do that first. So that's why I keep the day job. Many of my writer friends that I debuted with quit their jobs when they got their first advances, and some of them have had to go back to work. Some of them struggle. Some of them have partners that really support them, but don't have this very expensive hobby. And then to be fair, I've had horses. I've had my first horse. I got her when I was 12, and she's still alive. So she's very old.
Wow.
But so
Yeah.
I had the horses way before I had the writing career. So it wasn't like there was a lot of choice there. So
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Yeah.
yeah. So if I were in a position where I felt like I could jump off the deep end and devote 100% to being a creative writer, I probably could be more successful in terms of what I'm producing. So it's a
Yeah.
balance, right? So I'm not as quick to
It is a
produce the
balance. Yeah.
books. Yeah. Not as quick to produce the books as I could be if I didn't work. But at the same time, I
Yeah.
don't know that I would be sane. I'm already a little insane. But I don't know that I would be
I know the feeling.
sustainable, right? I'm a little nuts, but I would be really nuts if I had to worry about, paying the mortgage and when is my next royalty check, when is my next advance. If I had that on top
Exactly.
of,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, not having a steady paycheck. So, and that a lot of writers, unfortunately, people that are aspiring and they want to, they're hoping to be the next, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling. They don't want to hear these stories,
No,
right? These are painful stories. The reality of working and being a working writer is, it's not
yeah.
shiny. It's not the
It's not
Cinderella story you want to
glamorous. It's not
hear.
glamorous.
It's not glamorous.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
but
lot of
but if you,
hard work.
yeah, it's really painful,
And that's what
especially, yeah.
yeah, I say that to everybody. Like we are glamorized, I think, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like certain people they'll like do videos of them with like chefs, or people
Mm-hmm.
cooking for them or clean, while they're sitting looking perfect and writing. And that's just
Right.
not the typical writer because
Reality.
we're all, yeah, we all have jobs or we all have partners that support us or we, there's always responsibilities on us. We all go to the drugstore, we all go to the grocery store, we all do 101 things. Um,
Right.
and that's what I keep trying to like remind them. Like, I'm an indie author with one of the rarest contracts in the world, but I understand that my job is not steady. Like, my income is not
Mm-hmm.
steady, and I have to take measures to make sure that I don't put myself in a bad situation. And my husband's really good for that. But
Right.
yeah, like it's weird. Like, you know, I just don't like sitting still, and I can't creatively not be creative. So I think that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
why I'm now doing scripts and working with different people. But um, for me, yeah, I couldn't walk away from it now. Like
Same.
I've learned the hard
Same.
way. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I probably should, right? Like in terms of the actual, and I mean, I get paid for my books. Let's not, I'm not an indie writer. I am with
yeah,
one of the big five. And I get paid advances, and they're really pretty decent advances too. Like, I know that there are
yeah.
plenty of writers that would love to have had some of the success that I've had, and so I'm grateful for that. But compared to what I make in my day job, no
Yeah,
comparison,
exactly.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I could totally give this up and be like, yeah. So I don't do it for the money. And not certainly
We
not
do
at
it
this
because we
point in my
love it.
career, as far as I've been into it.
Yeah.
I really truly just continue to do it because I have to. Like, I have to tell stories. I love, 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 love story. I love to write. Um, I love to hear from readers, and there is definitely a lot of gratification when I hear from readers. But even that is not enough to keep you going, right? It's just
Yeah.
not. The thing that keeps you going is the story, because there's so many reasons not to do it. There's so many reasons to quit, especially as you get older, and once you realize that once you realize that Cinderella stories that you hear all the time, J.K. Rowling and her first book is a mega bestseller, or Stephanie Meyer, or mega bestseller, blah blah. Those are the stories you hear all the time, and you don't hear the
Hmm.
story of every other writer that doesn't have the big bestseller and that really is just a working writer and that struggles, and you don't hear those stories. But then once you realize that really is probably going to be your story, because those people are literally the lottery winners, so your
Yeah,
chances of
they are.
making it,
Yeah.
yeah, your ratio, especially now with the way that it is so easy to write books. There's computers, there's self-publishing. It's so much easier
Yeah.
to get your content out there. So the percentage of people that are publishing compared to people that are getting that massive success, that ratio is the equivalent of, not quite as high as winning the lottery, but it's pretty high. So it's just facts, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's just how it is, right? And so really, if you're doing this, do it because you love it. Do it because you have a story to tell, and that they're worth telling. They're stories that are worth sharing, and um,
Exactly.
that
To
they are
add something to
important
the
to share.
world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Um,
it's been amazing having you on, and I can't wait for you to come back with your latest release because we love having people who come back. So I will definitely be looking forward to having you back. I hope you've had some fun and this hasn't been a stressful hour
I'm
of
sorry, I froze.
promotion. It's been nice and
Okay.
chilled and relaxed, and you don't feel like that you're kind of like stuck doing it. Because I know what that feels like. That hour where you have to go do media, and you're just like, oh, because like
Hmm.
9 out of 10 people have no idea who you are, and you just end up like rolling your eyes. because you've had the same question
No,
like 15 million times.
no,
Been there,
I'm
done
so
that, got the t-shirt.
humble.
So this is the great thing about this. Yeah.
No, I'm so humble. I eat humble pie every day. It's fine. Like, I'm
Yeah,
used
like
to
we
nobody
all
knowing who
do,
I
but
am. No
it's
big deal.
like
It's
it's
fine.
nice to have a conversation that's just a conversation, not like where
Oh,
you're thinking,
Crystal.
oh, are they gonna use the right quote here or there? It's nice to just
Mm,
be able to relax for once with media and not have to worry so much. So
right.
yeah, it's the upside. It's the upside to doing the podcast, I suppose.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
This was very fun.
please feel free to come back. And yeah, we'll
Oh,
need to keep in touch, and I'd love to see how you're getting on, and I'll definitely email you my review once I've done it, because I absolutely
okay.
adore like just telling people like, "Whoa, I really love this," or "I really love that." So yeah, I really look forward to talking to you more. So guys, stay tuned next week as we have another amazing surprise guest coming on that I wasn't expecting but came in as last minute booking. So yeah, you'll want to stick around to see who that is.
Sorry, Crystal. It's frozen. Sorry. What? I'm sorry. I had some lag there. Oh no. That's funny. All right. Well, I wish. Oh no. Yeah. I'm lagging again. Oh, I'm sorry. This is country internet out here. Okay. My kids are probably awake and using we have broadband or DSL. So everything starts to slow down when they get up and start using it. Still waiting. Hello. Ugh. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm at 96. All right. Well, thank you very much. No, mine just went up to 97. So, okay. Is that it for us? No? Okay. I have my husband checking to make sure the kids aren't doing anything on the internet. Say again.